What is up, guys? Snaggle J back with a brand new video today. It is another Talking Points video. This time we are talking about Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the first big open world RPG game for the new generation of consoles. Obviously, it's available on the previous generation, Xbox and PS4 as well. All the footage you're going to see up here, as well as my full experience, is going to be limited to the Xbox Series S version. I have about 22 hours in the game right now, so I've got a long way to go for a game that they say the main story could take upwards of 60 hours. But there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about. And again, just like my Xbox Series S video, this is not supposed to be a review. These are just some things that I like and dislike that I want to talk about, and hopefully it will help you make an informed decision if you are on the fence about playing this game. It is a so far very, very good fun experience. I have not been in the Assassin's Creed franchise a whole lot. I think the last one I played was Black Flag, and I was on the fence about picking this up originally, but once Cyberpunk was delayed until December, I thought, well, I've got a month with this brand new console. Well, I really won't have anything to play, so I picked it up, and boy, oh boy, I am not disappointed. It has beautiful graphics and lighting. Again, this screenshot, the video you're watching up here, captured on the Xbox Series S. You can go to my Twitter or my Instagram. It's SnaggleJ on both. I've posted some different screenshots and stuff. The graphics and the lighting in this game are absolutely top tier. And the thing that I think they do really, really well is it helps you set the tone and mood of particular areas. When you come into some areas that are cursed or whatnot, I will try to avoid spoilers, by the way, as much as I can in this video. There may be a few spoilers that sneak in, but I'm going to try to avoid them. But when you go into a cursed area or like a battle-ridden area, you know, the fog and the lighting kind of sets the mood for that area. When you're in a large open world, large time commitment game, the graphics and the lighting could go a long way towards pulling you in towards the story. And Valhalla does that very, very well. Again, I'm not playing it in 4K. I assume if you're playing on a Series X or PS5, it looks even better than what I've been experiencing. But, you know, there's a distinct difference between the snowy graphics of Norway and what you're seeing here, which is England. You know, the rolling hills and the grass and the weeds and the trees and the sun shining through the trees. It's just, both worlds, both countries, regions are done just so amazing. I constantly find myself stopping and just looking at what is on my screen. It's absolutely fantastic. Another part that really pulls me in are the story elements. Now, again, large time commitment games need to have a story that keep you intrigued. And, you know, you're talking about here 9th century Europe. You have Viking culture, you have Anglo-Saxon culture, different versions of religion. There's a lot of different, you know, tones and tenors kind of weaving in through the story, and I'm digging it. There's this constant wanting to see what happens next. I think like any open world game, you know, there's a certain level of predictability. You can kind of get into a side quest and you kind of have a general understanding of where it's going to end, or you can kind of go through a couple of main story missions and you have a general understanding of where it's going to end. But in the first 22 plus hours of the game, there have definitely been moments where I thought, crap, I didn't think that was going to happen. So again, the story elements are intriguing, which is exactly what you want from an open world RPG, a story that's intriguing. Nobody wants to play a 50 plus hour game and it'd be boring and the story be super predictable and very linear. So I'm looking forward to where the story goes from here. Also, the other thing about open world games, there's a lot to do. There is always stuff to do. So every area obviously has main story connotations, but it also has 3 different groups of discoveries, let's say. There is wealth, there is mysteries, and there's artifacts. The really cool thing I like about this is you can see how many of each are in every area. So Norway, I think there's 2 or 3 areas. England, there's like 13 counties. I haven't been to more than probably 3 so far. But once you get the synchronization points, which are always up high, you'll see them on the map. And what that does is it works the same as it does in pretty much every other Assassin's Creed game, or if you're familiar with the Far Cry series as well, with the radio towers, it shows you what's in the area. So the cool thing is you can know, hey, when I'm in this area, there's 18 wealth points, 15 mysteries, and 6 artifacts to find. So if you're a 100%er, if you're a completionist, you're going to be very quickly able to tell when you've cleared an area. So that is really cool. There's a lot to do. Some of the mysteries are kind of hokey dokey. I have a few issues with them, which I'm going to talk about in the stuff that I don't really like later in the video. Some of them are kind of weird, but some of them are really kind of cool. Just interesting little stories. Some of them will make you laugh. I think a lot of them are geared kind of, not a lot of them, but there are some that are just, written with a kind of a humorous nature and little lovable characters that you deal with for 5 or 10 minutes and then they're gone. But there is a lot to do. There's no shortage of stuff to do. Now, when it comes to character, there is 3 things about your character that I love. Number 1, how skills are handled. So essentially, every time you level up, you get 2 skill points. Your spent skill points is what they call your power, which is, what determines how strong you are, upgrades your attributes, whatnot. One thing I really like is every area and every sub-battle, or boss battle, I guess, is clearly marked with your recommended power. So you can very quickly tell, hey, I shouldn't be in this area. I remember way back when Skyrim first came out. Now remember, for those of you who are new here, Skyrim is my favorite game of all time. I had the 600-page Skyrim guide, which every single dungeon and place you could go had the recommended level in it. And that way I would know where not to go early in the game. This game, and again, it's pretty easy to determine not where to go early in the game. But once you get to England, if there was really, like, a lot of the counties are very close to where you set up. It's very easy, if you did not know, to wander into an area where you're a 30 power and the recommended level is 160. There's one a couple thousand meters away. So that's great to be able to look and say, hey, I shouldn't be here, or I should be here. That's great. I have an issue with this. Again, I'm going to talk about it in the stuff that I don't like. The other thing is that you can reset your skills at any time. So there are 3 main branches of the skill tree. And as you go through the skill trees, it will give you upgrades to your different attributes. So your light damage, heavy damage, your archery skills, your stealth skills, your assassination damage, your critical damage, your armor levels, all the way through the skill tree. There's little points of, improvement that will help, make your character better. There's also skills that are unlocked along the way. So for example, one of them that I'm really trying to get is auto loot. So that when I kill somebody in melee combat, it auto loots them. So I don't have to go back and loot the bodies all the time. The really cool thing about this is that you can't see these skills. You have to open up a branch to get the next branch of skills. The great thing about this is you can reset the full tree at any time. So one thing I found was early in the game, I wasn't sure what kind of character I wanted to be. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be, just a tank going in there, meleeing people, if I wanted to focus on more archery and stealth, or a combination of archery and stealth, be an assassin and just kind of lie in the weeds and assassinate people. The cool part about it is you don't have to worry about it. Because once you get to 15, 20, 30, whatever point of the game you decide, hey, this is the kind of character I want to be, you can fully reset the skill tree with no penalty whatsoever and start over and rebuild your skill tree to give you the most value for your skill points from your character. That is huge. Not having to pay a penalty, not having to go find a particular vendor in a game that can reset your skills. It's absolutely fantastic. The other thing, the third part that I really like about the characters is how the gear works to a certain extent. So gear is hard to come by. You don't just stumble across endless amounts of weapons and armor all over the place. What you can do with what you have is extremely endless. Um, but again, I'll use Skyrim as an example. 10, 15 hours into Skyrim, you have, 6 different kinds of weapons in 3 different kinds of forms, 50 different kinds of armor, and you're constantly playing inventory management simulator to try to figure out what you want and where you want to go with it. In Valhalla, armor and weapons are a little rarer. So you can really kind of set in with what you have and put your resources towards upgrading what you have. So I have a set of armor that I actually got through Prime Gaming. Prime Gaming had a link up with Valhalla through your Ubisoft account, and I love it. I have a two-handed sword that I love. Now, there's 2 ways you can upgrade your armor and your weapons. You can upgrade the attributes by just using resources. So leather and iron ore being the primary ones. And so, for example, your sword may have 4 blocks, which means you can upgrade it 4 times, and it will upgrade the stats of that. So, the critical damage, the heavy damage, the light damage, the stun chance, critical chance, whatever. You can also upgrade the quality of it at the blacksmith. What the quality does is it gives you more stat upgrades for a weapon. So your initial base quality, you might only be able to upgrade it twice. The second one, you may be able to upgrade it 4 times. Some of them, I think 10 upgrades is the most you can get. So there is still a strategy and a gear portion of the game that you need to worry about. But because the actual equipment is a little more rare, it's not a extremely dominant part of the game. I have not at any point in 22 hours found myself grinding for gear and trying to upgrade better gear and making that a 3-4 hour focus, which is good. I want to play the game, and I really like the way they handled that. Let's talk about some things I don't like. The first of which is knowing where to go and tracking in side quests. I have found myself multiple times being completely lost with where I should be going, side quests, mystery tracking. Now, it's an open world game, right? You don't want it to be linear. But when I'm working on something, the tracking of the side quests is just, it's not good. When you go to your quest log in the menu, it only shows main quests. So if you've gone to a side quest and you couldn't complete it for whatever reason, and then you need to go back to it later, you'll have no log, no idea what you were doing or what it was. And a lot of them, once you talk to the character the first time, you can't get that information back. They usually won't respond to you a second time. So the one thing that I will recommend to people is that if you stumble across a mystery, you should try to complete it while you're there, because the tracking of them is poor / non-existent. Again, the main story constantly showing you where you should go. There's a quest log. It's really easy to keep track of where you should be, what main story quest you're working on, one area versus the next area. But again, the side quests could definitely use, at the very least, a log where I could see, hey, this is a mystery that you started. This was the conversation that occurred. Because then if I come back to it 15 hours later, I'm not trying to remember what the hell I was doing. The other thing that I have struggled with is the controls can be a little janky sometimes. Now, from what I gathered from reading online, this is a common complaint with pretty much every Assassin's Creed game that's ever existed. I enjoy the controls for the most part, but in large battles and raids, the controls are janky at best. The camera does a horrible job of getting you in the way. You really have to be careful going into large battles, because just like it would be in a large battle, you can get attacked from all sides. And, you really need to learn how to use the focus on one enemy and unfocus. I just find in battle, especially larger battles with multiple enemies, the controls could really be done better. I need more hotkeys to switch between enemies, or a little more camera control. I think maybe a first-person option might alleviate some of that. I don't know. But I definitely know that there are some times where I will be in a raid or in a battle with larger numbers of enemies, and I just find myself completely overwhelmed because the controls are not doing what I want it to do. It's not hitting the right person. So I find myself backing off. And again, maybe that was how the game was intended, to try to keep you out of those larger melee situations and try to progress through them by picking off a few people with your bow and arrows, and then moving in to attack one or two guys. But again, if that was the intention, that's fine. But for me, the controls really, which are 90% of the time very, very, very good, they struggle when you're in larger battles. The other thing I have an issue with is sometimes I find the loot button very inconsistent. So again, I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to get the auto loot for a reason. Looting things uses the Y button or triangle on PlayStation. Sometimes it doesn't work. I will run by a loot pile and you can clearly see there's loot there, and I hit it and it does not grab the loot. And I don't know if that's a bug or if I should need to slow down a little bit, but it is something that that I found I'm not a huge fan of. The last thing I will mention is the over level battles in lower leveled areas. So I'll give you an example. In the first area you go to in England, it is recommended power 20. But yet there are one mini boss, which I won't go into great detail because I don't want to give too many story elements away, and one mystery that the recommended power is actually level 90. Now, this is a personal thing for me, not necessarily a flaw or a game breaking thing. I like to be able to clear an entire area and then move on. But obviously, with my 55 power character in a 20 power area with 290 power people I need to beat, I can't do that. So if you're the kind of completionist that wants to complete an area and never come back to it ever again, you're going to have a hard time with that, at least based on my early experience with the game. Now, again, that's not necessarily a huge issue. Some people, maybe the game wants you to come back to those areas for one reason or another. I will find that out later. But in the initial thoughts of trying to complete a particular area and then move on, it's just one of those things that I'm not a huge, huge fan of. But there you have it, folks. Those are my thoughts on Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Again, played on the Xbox Series S. Obviously, it's available on all Xbox and PlayStation consoles, current and last gen. Overall, I'm really digging it so far. I have not been this into a RPG game in a long time. It's been a long time since I've been this invested in an RPG. I would say I probably have not been this invested in a game of this style since Horizon Zero Dawn was probably the last time I was into an RPG this much. So again, I'm loving it. I'm digging it. I will probably post another talking points video once I've completed the game and maybe compare it to what I said the first time and kind of see if anything changes between the 22 and the who knows what hour mark, 80, 100. I got to get it done before Cyberpunk comes out. But guys, if you like the video, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. Hit that thumbs up as hard as you can. We have some more great stuff coming to the channel. But as always, I've been Snaggle J. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace.